I think I always recommend, newspaper is the best place to train you as a photographer. It brings you some discipline, and also, you develop your patience because you will get a call at 11:30 in the night or 12 o'clock in the night saying there is an accident happened in, near Anna Nagar. Then you will take your Moffat and then go there and you find that there is a cycle guy just drunk and crashed into a drainage, you know, and you know that it's a very small news and then you have to come back, but you have to take a picture and come back. I might not sound like an artist when I say this, because if somebody is paying a money and I just respect that, I have to deliver what they want. And if the time permits, then I can experiment what I really want to do that. So first stick to the brief and deliver and shoot everything. So I look at myself as a problem solving for somebody actually. And they need some sort of a visual support. That's why they are hiring me. So if your perception is slightly different, then you don't get bored of that. But if you look at you are just a creator, I'm going to create something and that has to be appreciated by someone, then it's a different equation.
Hello, Selva. Thanks for your coming on this podcast. It's super fun having you on the show. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Raju. Thanks for inviting me. It's my pleasure actually.
All right. So nice to finally get to speak to someone whose work I've been following for the past few years. I've been seeing, like, since I spoke to Pon Prabhakar, I've been following your work, and some of the photographs, some of the portraits that you've done is just amazing. So I really wanted to sort of speak to you and explore your journey, like how you got to this place, how you found this vocation, this art, and what are the influences over the years that you have had that has sort of influenced your signature style and the way you approach your work, right? So that's basically what I want to sort of explore with you in this episode. You started off as a staff photographer for Dinamalar, which is a newspaper that I'm very familiar with. Growing up with Madurai, it's a standard thing in everybody's house, right? How did that happen? Like, what got you to the space where you got into Tamil Daily as a photographer?
Yeah. So I think the journey is a bit long. I trying to be, make it as a T20 format.
Okay,
Uh, so I'm 45. So it's almost 20 years of journey, 23-year of
right.
journey. So for I was very bad at academics technically. So I end up of studying economics. So that's the usual now. If you're not good at academics, then you end up history, economics, literature, or something like that. So when I was in my college, then I was really interested in the fine arts. I was the freestyle dancer, you can call me, yeah, in the college days.
Oh, awesome. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so I was part of the fine arts and going to different colleges. So, but I was really enjoyed that. I was passionate about the dance and other stuffs. So that's the window to explore the art form. So I was really enjoying. So post my economics, I was really interested to study something related to the fine arts. So initially, I want to be a cinematographer. So I tried to be a try to learn cinematography, but in Chennai, the film school have a rule that if you want to study cinematography, you should study physics and chemistry in your 11th and 12th grade. That's an eligible
Oh,
because those
oh, I didn't know
days,
that.
yeah, those days it's a film, so you should know the chemical aspect of processing and things like that. And
Ah,
then
okay.
lens has the physics base, so that's the qualification. So I studied again 11th and 12th as a commerce group, so that's ruled out. Can't get into the cinematography. So the other option is in Tirunelveli, there is an university called Manonmaniyam Sundarnar University, where they have the Masters in Journalism and Mass Communication, which is a next option. So I joined the MA Journalism and Mass Communication in Manonmaniyam Sundarnar University. And this photography is more accidental for me. It's not really, I consciously chose photography or something. So I have a senior, his name is Nabil Farsan, who comes with a camera every day to the college. In those days, carrying a camera, or I would say that in that age, carrying a camera is like very fashionable, and then there is a fame attached to that. So that's why I said it's more of an accidental. And so I was really influenced and impressed by him. So he also teaches me the basics of the SLR camera. And then we have a lab journal called Tamarabarani, which is a river name which flows in Tirunelveli.
Right.
So in the lab journal, there is another senior asked me to take some pictures of the potholes in the road, and he gave me the Pentax K1000 camera and then asked me to shoot a couple of images. So I shot that, and then the lab journal published that images. So when you see your own images in a lab journal, which is a tabloid size, and which gives you in that age, it's a fame and things like that. So to be honest, that's how I got into the photography. There is a fame attached to that. And many people get into the photography largely for there is a fame attached to that actually. So likewise, I'm also got into that. And end of that, like in the lab journal, everyone has to produce a lab journal. So everybody largely asked me to do the photo. So defaultly, I'm the photo person in my, PG.
Okay.
So at the end of the college, I don't know what to do. I was like a little bit of confused with whether go to the editing or a photography or cinematography. In that time, professor of mine, Arul Chelvan, so he said like there is an opening in a Dinamalar. Would you be interested? End of your college, you have an immediate job offer. So I thought, okay, sure, I should take that. And that's also into a photography. So that's how then I attended the interview and I got into the newspaper photography. So during that interview and during this time of college, I bought the Vivitar 3800N, which is a film camera. So to carry that camera, I need a camera bag. So I
Right.
subscribed Better Photography, 3-year subscription. It comes along with the bag actually.
Right.
So this Better Photography introduced a little bit of international photojournalist and things like that. And there is a guy called Tom Studart. He covered the Gujarat earthquake in those times. And his interview was in this magazine. As pictures are really striking. Still now, the Tom Studart came to my life in a different stages. The first stages was this Gujarat earthquake.
Right.
And for this interview also, because any interview people will ask who is your favorite photographer. So I was preparing that I'm going to tell Tom Studart because I really liked his work and things like that. So that's how I got into the Dinamalar newspaper. I worked with them for a year, and I would say, with that age, your mind will be everywhere. You want to do this and you want to do that. You are not satisfied with your own, goals. So I was keep moving my workstations in a different places. I keep asking transfers because I thought this place might give more challenges. But, you know, I don't think so. I was not really focused on that. I just keep moving. I would say I'm a bad employee in those times.
So how old were you there? How old were you there?
24, 23, 24, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what kind of work did you do at Dilamalar? Was it just, you go around with the reporters and take photographs, or did they
Yeah.
give you like photographic assignments?
Yeah, it
How
works in
was it?
both ways. So largely, this is all news dailies. Like, so they have the previous day, you will know what are the events happening in the city. So they will assign you morning 9 o'clock, you have to go here and 11:30 I'm here, and suddenly something spot news pop up, and they will ask you to go and cover that and come back. I think I always recommend, newspaper is the best place to train you as a photographer. It brings you some discipline, and also, you develop your patience because you will get a call at 11:30 in the night or 12 o'clock in the night saying there is an accident happened in, near Anna Nagar. Then you will take your Moffat and then go there, and you find that there is a cycle guy just drunk and crashed into a drainage, you know, and you know that it's a very small news, and then you have to come back, but you have to take a picture and come back. Or you end up of going to some 25 kilometers and taking a picture, and then suddenly you get a call saying that news is not very relevant. You can go back to your home. So there is a kind of, you just execute, don't attach too much to your work. That training you will get it in a newspaper. Or you just go to 25 kilometers just to take a passport size of a person's headshot and then come back and file it. And I think that's important. And even I was not a good employee there, though I was not a good, you know, photographer, but the space trained me really well. I learned quite a lot from them, actually. Yeah. So I moved out from the Dinamalar, and then I want to learn the commercial aspect of photography. I went to Bombay and I worked as an assistant to a commercial photographer named called Chatin Chonkar. So I did my internship with him actually during my college. So I wrote an email to him and saying I want to be an assistant for some time to understand the nuances of the commercial photography, studio photography, things like that. So I was there for 6, 7 months and trying out the commercial aspect of it. My sister was living in Bombay, so I have a kind of a ecosystem to survive over there. So when they moved back to southern India, again back to Tamil Nadu, then I also came back to Tirunelveli, and then trying to do a little bit of documentary style photography because I have no jobs also, but I have a camera and little bit of exposure to the newspaper thanks to Dinamalar, and a little bit of a commercial aspect to that. And 1 year I was just roaming around and shooting, and then trying to go back to the newspaper because which I find that's my cup of tea. So trying to apply newspapers and things like that, but somehow it wasn't happening. Then my dad said, like, don't wait for too long. Just find a full-time job, you go back because this is the age you have to get into the job. So I think that's a turning point. I got a teaching opportunity in Hindustan College of Arts and Science, which is in Coimbatore.
Okay.
Uh, so it's a visual communication department. Mainly, I have to teach photography. Along with photography, I have to teach other subjects. That's how it works. I was with this college for 1.5 year. I honestly saying that's the time I learned photography because you have to face some 50 students, and they are investing their time to listen what you are going to speak. So you have to prepare yourself well and then address the students. And we have a dark room setup. There is a studio, and there are students who have really curious to know different aspect of photography. So I start reading and exploring this photography for 1 year, 1.5 year. And along with the student, I also learned a lot, and I really gifted to have such students, and I have a great place to hone my photography skill. So after 1.5 year, I just my interest of going back to the newspaper is still on. So and that time this publication called Dinagaran, and they were relaunching their editions. So I applied for a Delhi position actually because that's the reason I was telling in a Dinamalar I keep moving my different cities because I just want a little more challenging assignments and things like that. So Delhi, I thought it's a better place to, explore more and
Mm.
things like that. But there was a delay in launching the Delhi edition. They launched the Bangalore edition much earlier. So they asked me, why don't you join the Bangalore edition? So I joined the Bangalore edition. So that's second, term getting into the newspaper. This time I'm very clear. Just I have to be a good photographer to the organization, not like the previous one. So I put my effort at the maximum and I start working as a newspaper photographer in Bangalore and doing the regular assignments and things like that. So I got introduced to this platform called differentbox.org. And I don't know whether you know this guy called Sheshu. Sheshu is a very talented portrait photographer who lives in US now. So he ran the platform called differentbox.org. So he put a lot of resources on those days, like 2007, 8. So the internet and these platforms are slowly coming up, and he put really interesting photographer. He features their works and things like that. So
Right.
where I saw, if I'm not wrong, it's Ami's work, if I'm not wrong. So like my memory is not that great now. So he put those body of works, it's rather than the
Right.
single images. And those body of works really inspiring. So I thought since it's a Bangalore edition, I have some free time because it's not like you are in a vernacular newspaper functioning within the state will keep you very busy. This is outside the state, so I have a lot of time. So I thought let's work on some stories. And as a newspaper guy, you will encounter every day some interesting people or interesting news or like
Mm.
issues and things like that. So I found that there is a protest going on, like old age home people protesting because there is a new road coming on their way, so it's going to demolish their old age home. So the people were protesting over that. So I was interested when I talked to them, and then I met this founder, like the founder who runs this place, saying like I would like to come and see your old age home and just wanted to document and then run as a story on my newspaper. When he agreed, and then I every day I go around 4 or 5 from the morning from my place to this old age home and shoot till 8 in the morning, and then come back and do my routine news things for almost a month or something. That slowly built up uh, I would say like a story on a old age home. And with that story, I published a couple of images in my own newspaper. And I also applied, there is a workshop called Anchor Photo Festival, which happens in Cambodia. So I applied for the workshop. I got selected for the workshop. So I went to Cambodia and did this workshop. So during the workshop, you have to find a subject and you every day you shoot and come back and show the works to the photo editors and people from Magnum or Pulitzer Prize winning photographer Renee Seabear. She was mentoring me in that workshop, and every day I goes with as a newspaper guy goes with hundreds and hundreds of pictures and shoot a lot
Right.
because that newspaper will train me to do that. And she patiently go through these images and then tells the strip of these images and how to sequencing it, all that she did it. And in this workshop, every workshop in the end, they choose 30 people. Out of 30 people, they will select one work as the best work and then they award with the best work along with some money. And so I got that award and that money for that year. And also beyond that, that really introduced me to the international photographic, works and the platforms and the opportunities. So because you interact with other photographers, all that, but I have no clue. I have very little knowledge when I go to this workshop, and that's open up my, you know, photographic world into the next level. And coming back, and immediately I got another opportunity to join in a magazine called Time Out, which is a really good magazine, lifestyle
Hmm.
magazine. I was with them for 6 months. My interest was really into the hardcore news. So I was keep an eye on a newspaper again. There is a newspaper called Daily News and Analysis, which is just about to launch in Bangalore. So I was moved to that magazine, a newspaper for 2 years and working
Hmm.
as a newspaper guy. So that's roughly. And then I went back to the Time Out magazine and stayed with them for 4 years. And then 2014, I quit and decided to be a freelancer. So that's roughly the,
Right. So
you know,
there's a
yeah.
lot of newspaper influence in your life, right? In terms of your career, how has it impacted your style? Like, if I see some of your projects, like your black and white work, very documentary in style, very stark. How has those kind of work? How has it affected or impacted your freelance or commercial work?
Yeah. So as I said that the Miller is my first, organization where I worked as a newspaper photographer. So I learned a lot from that organization. One is like this stories, you find stories because when you're in a newsroom, you will know these interesting stories and that some of the stories what is there actually or learn those newses or news angle from those organization and especially the fisherman issue because I was in Madurai. I think my second transfer to Madurai and I keep reading these fisherman goes and fishing in the international water or Sri Lankan water and get killed by the Sri Lankan Navy. So this news, I keep reading it. I was interested in that actually. So, but I have not much idea about what is storytelling. So it's more of a newspaper guy. When the spot news happened, I just wanted to go and shoot. That's the kind of a knowledge I have. But I knew the news actually. There is an important news which is underreported in the international or a national newspaper. And then the Jallikattu, again, I'm in the Madurai. Then I knew that, it's a really interesting sports. There are other aspects to this sports. It's not a one day thing. I just wanted to, how they train the bulls and what is the relationship between the bull and the bull owner. All that was interesting but you don't know where to start and I have a little time because you are a full timer and then I moved to Coimbatore and that's the time this elephant camp was just started. I think it's a third or fourth year if I'm not wrong, and
Right.
this elephant will be moved in a lorry and that was in the news. I find it is very fascinating. It's very interesting what is happening in this camp, but I am not matured enough to handle such stories and I don't have that much time to do that also. So when I moved to Bangalore and I was working with this newspaper and the magazine, the work styles become slightly different. And I have explored to this international photography community through Anchor Photo Festival and things like that. And I was kind of you are ready. So I believe that when you are ready, things will come to you. So I was ready.
Right.
So I just revisiting these places and with start doing these work. So that's why there is a very close connection with the journalistic kind of a documentary on my portfolio. To be honest, like people knows me for my portrait work, but still my cup of tea is more of a documentary. But getting such commissioned work is a challenging and finding a time to work on such project is also challenging in these days. But I have to balance in some way. Hopefully, I will balance it in coming years. Yeah, yeah,
So today, like you said, you're known for your portrait, your studio work. But
yeah.
what kind of work are you getting these days? Is it more of the magazine cover or editorial for Forbes and all of those magazines? You've done a lot of work of prominent personalities. Are you getting more of that kind of work, or are you getting more your the kind of work that you want to do?
No, I think the editorial photojournalistic stories are very, very less these days.
Okay.
And especially I'm in Bangalore. So the freelance opportunity of doing it from Bangalore is very limited because the stories from southern part of India is very less. In photo stories, I'm saying either it can be an international space or even in a national space, the amount is less. If I really wants to do either, I have to be place myself in Bombay or Delhi to do that volume. So largely it is right now I'm doing portraits, editorial portraits, and that led into commercial works like a commission portraits for corporate companies or an individual portraits. And also I do architecture and other stuffs also. Thanks to Time Out, because Time Out is a lifestyle magazine which trained me to do shoot food in the morning, afternoon portrait, and evening you will shoot some architectural and the interior. And so that trained me to do different stuffs. So
Right.
my website also slightly reflects that. So that's why there is a commercial, completely a different link which will show all kind of sorts of things I do. Yeah. So I would say volume of work is really high in editorial,
Right. Right.
but in terms of income, largely it comes from the commercial. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. But in terms of your commercial work, the portraits and other stuff that you do, has your newspaper background sort of bled into it in terms of your style? Has it influenced, or do you keep it compartmentalized? You have a different look and feel to that work, and your documentary is sort of different, and you purely look at the client's brief and stick to it, or do you try to sort of put your spin to the brief and give it a certain look?
To be honest, yeah, this newspaper or a documentary photographic skill really helps me to do the commercial or corporate portraits or headshots. Really helps me because I largely give importance for the expressions of the people. Sometimes I'm not really bothering about what kind of a light. Even I honestly I don't know. I don't really bother about whether it is a butterfly light or a Rembrandt light or something. Not really fine tuning, getting a triangle perfectly on the cheek. Definitely I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the gesture of the person and the expressions and how comfortable he is, which is all comes from more of a journalistic and the documentary side of it. Like I just use the light as a fill light. That's it. And or if I want to make it a little dramatic and things like that, just I use that couple of lights and get it executed. So the first question is, yeah, yes, it is really helping me. I just incorporate those nuances or the aesthetics of documentary and the photojournalism into that. And in terms of the second question, how do you look at the documentary and the commercial work? I'm the guy, I stick to the brief. There is no doubt in it. And because I might not sound like an artist when I say this, because if somebody is paying a money and I just respect that, I have to deliver what they want. And if the time permits, then I can experiment what I really want to do that. So first stick to the brief and deliver and shoot everything. And if the time permits, and then I can experiment, you know, different angles, or are you going to try different composition, which is not really a corporate portrait style or a headshot style? All that if the
Right.
time permits. But my priority is if somebody is commissioning and they are commissioning because they saw something on my website and that has to reflect on my work, and that's my rule. So I can shift my brain into that. I would say that
Right.
I can detach that. If it is a commercial work, it's a commercial work, and you go with this focus on this kind of a style. I do that, and which I
Right.
maybe I'm just keep repeating. I do multiple stuff because I shoot a food, then I have to be shoot like a food photographer, and I have to shoot an
Right. Right.
architecture. I have to shoot like an architectural photographer, and so that
Right.
helps me to shift into these styles. And I'm happy about it. If people think that I don't have a style or something, it's absolutely fine, and I will show my style in my own personal work, not into somebody commissioning and they are expecting me to do it in a specific way. Yeah.
Yeah, but once you are an established commercial photographer and you have a significant body of work, and people come to you because you have a certain look, right? In terms of the Selvaprakash Lakshmanan brand, if I can call it that. In terms of okay, this is the kind of work that you do. This is my body of work. This is what I am. And when they come to you expecting that kind of style, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, do you think that kind of helps in giving you that amount of freedom to approach it the way you want to?
So I think that's again it's going back to the previous question actually. So the client is giving you that much freedom because I did such projects sometimes saying there is no brief. There is no
Right.
brief. They come and tell you that Selva, you just shoot the way you like it actually. Or they
Right.
might refer specific work in my own website. We like this approach. Can you do it like that? And there you have a freedom and the client is trusting your aesthetic sense or a creative thought process where
Right.
it's fine. But if somebody is saying, I like the vanishing tribes portraits and one late evening you shot with available light. So the client is even choosing a specific style on you. At least
Right.
in my case, my website I have some even I removed some of the work like because the website become very heavier. During the timeout period, I each year we have to produce some sort of an annual photo story. And one year I shot, it's called a tree stump, which is a project on, when they widening the road, when they built the metro, they chop the trees and they remove
Right.
the tree stump, putting outskirt of the city, which doesn't have any commercial value. So I shot those tree stumps with a, you know, camera on a tripod in the late night and long exposure for, you know, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then use a torch to paint the tree stumps, which is completely a very artistic,
Right.
conceptualizing a story. And whereas this vanishing traders, during the monsoon time, late evening, you will get a blue sky shooting under the sodium vapor, a street lamp, which gives you a color tone. And I shot only during the monsoon. It's more documentary, but you force them to do something, like you stand like that, a little bit of. And then there is another year we shot as superheroes, which we take these some of the people who doing some really great work in the art and culture and bring them in a studio and then ask them to do some superhero actions and then photograph. So my style itself vary for different projects. I don't know, is it a
Okay.
merit or a demerit? I don't know. But I'm open because if you keep doing similar kind of a style, you might get bored of it actually. And
Exactly.
so I'm not answering to your question because I don't know whether the client specify a style. I want like this. I'm happy to do that in my own website. If they're completely giving me a freedom, you shoot the way you want. I'm open to think and do something, and or
Right.
referring somebody else's work. This is what we want from you, Selva, and just a brighter background, your shoot, and this is for a commercial purpose. I'm on it. So that's absolutely fine for me. Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. So are you a very technical photographer or like very instinctive and you like, for example, you said you're very free with the kind of lights that you use, right?
And that way I'm non-technical. Yeah. So I tell people that
Right.
this is slightly a yarn, but so I tell that see when somebody looking at your image, it's my philosophy or my belief. I'm not saying it's everyone has to agree with that. When somebody look at my picture and if they start finding out what is my F number and what is the type of a lens I have used and what kind of a lighting I have did it, is a failure of an art form for me because my intention is I'm trying to say something through the photo, but the audience is looking at something else, like the technical aspect of my photography. So if I do it like that, it's a failure of my practice. That's my belief, actually.
Right.
So, whether it is a macro or a 16 with a wide angle, distortions on the corner, which all like immediately the audience will questioning what equipment, what technicality involved in that. So that's unless if the subject demands, it's fine. Subject demands a specific technical aspect to that, it's fine. Otherwise, for me, like too much of technical sound is the failure of a picture. So I always say, everybody knows Henry Cartier-Bresson's image of Jawaharlal Nehru laughing, scene with the Mountbatten Prabhu and his wife, and
Right.
nobody bothers about whose image it is, but it is going viral, right? Because there is a
Yeah.
humor in it. there is a history behind it, or there is a image of, you know, Corky's image of the rocket frontal part on a backside of a cycle and then walking on a, small, tiny little lane in a rural part of in
Yeah.
India. And nobody bothers that because it's not some low angle camera or
Right.
like a wide angle lens or a shallow depth of field. Nothing is that. So there is an information which, you know, make the image more interesting and powerful and meaningful. So there is a quote or way I look at photography is I always says that nobody is going to read a poem just because of the beautiful handwriting. People read
Right.
poem because there is a meaning in it, or the poem evokes some sort of an emotion in it. That's why you read the poem, or that's why you are saying that's your favorite poem. Likewise, I like a picture because it communicates with me in terms of, you know, whether it's triggers some sort of emotion or there is a humor in it. And that's important. So content matters for me than the technical aspect of it. If it is slightly blurry, out of focus, there are images in the history. It's still most iconic images because there is a strong content in it. So that's my philosophy. That's my
Right.
belief. Not
Right.
necessarily
Right.
everybody has to be believe that.
Right.
Actually, yeah, yeah.
Being a busy commercial photographer, doing commission after commission, how do you keep yourself fresh? Do you take up personal projects just to sort of satisfy your inner creative urge?
Yeah,
I
I think
just
2000
often
after 2014 or 15, I just slightly changed my approach to the photography practice, I would say. Like especially the commercial people, even a couple of my friends also always says that Silva, don't you get bored of these shooting these commercial? But I'm just looking at that. I'm helping someone actually with this skills. That's my baseline. So even that's why if it is too muddy, hydration comes in terms of editing or in terms of, I do some video works too, video editing or changing images. I don't like that selection. Can you go into this selection? So I look at myself as a problem solving for somebody actually, and they need some sort of a visual support. That's why they are hiring me. So if your perception is slightly different, then you don't get bored of that actually. But if you look at you are just a creator, I'm going to create something and that has to be appreciated by someone, then it is a different equation. That's why I said after 2014, I changed my perspective towards what I'm doing. So it's like more of whether it is editorial, there is a purpose to that. That's why they're asking me to do that actually. If the purpose is not served, well, no matter how great or how good my photography is, it's at the end of the day is it's not serving the purpose, it's failed then. So and that changing that attitude will help me to not get drained. Even no matter too many hydration, it's absolutely fine because they're trying to they can't do that actually. That's why they are coming to you. And they don't know what they
right,
want. That's why they keep telling that
right,
I don't like after you do some sort of changes, they will say, seeing that and then say, I don't like that. Probably the brief came from them only. But they don't know. And at least some 22 years of experience and with a 45-year, I have some patience and then a little bit of a knowledge. So I can manage that actually. That's fine. So no boring. So
right,
if you change your attitude,
right.
yeah.
Newspapers today. Today, with the advent of mobile phones, I heard in the West at least a lot of publications firing staff photographers because the reporters themselves have
Mobile phone,
pretty
yeah.
good camera in their phone to take photographs. You had a upbringing, your solid base foundation because of newspapers and publications. Has it changed today because of all these new technologies that has
It
emerged?
is. It has changed. Yeah. It has changed, and the number of photographers in the newspaper also drastically changed. And also, like, it's an open secret that editorial don't pay much like the commercial. So it is difficult to attract the new talents also into the newspaper because the pays are really low. And so that's also another factor. So this mobile phone is really affecting the daily news. At least I will say that. Yeah, daily news and spot news are already hijacked by the mobile phone photography because all these events, like say, like largely the at least in India, like a newspaper carry chief ministers goes here and then opening this new hospital or a new scheme, and or some councillor goes and inaugurates something. All these kind of a stuff is the daily news which we carry in a newspaper, all like shot by their own party workers or somebody shot in a mobile phone. They email those images to the you know newsroom, so they don't need a photographer for such areas now. And the spot news again, public, everybody have a mobile phone. Anything happens, and especially any disaster or anything, that you know citizen journalist will take something and then they upload into the platform, and then the newspaper uses that actually. So only possibility is like an as a photojournalist, you find your own stories, you work on something, and then you publish it. That's the one area still there. So I think we have to focus on that if you want to be a photojournalist or some journalistic stuff you want to do that, not to bother about the daily news and the spot news. Let's find out some interesting stories and work on it and then publish it. That's the possible way. Yeah.
Right, right. So going forward, like where do you see your next half of your career, Selva? Like you're 45, nearing 50. So what's the next step in your storied career?
Yeah, I think as you
Yeah.
asked, the personal stories you asked actually. So I think now I should start focusing on more of my personal stories because freelance gives some sort of a financial stability these days for me. So only the time is a factor now. So I should some plan some time to work on my personal projects and things like that, which is also, as I said, that I can experiment what I want because I'm the boss. And
Right,
in terms of creativity and everything. And that really the important thing in this maybe next 5 years or 10 years. Yeah.
right, right. So before I close, I want to ask one important question in the sense that you said you're very focused on the expressions
Body
of the
language.
body language. How do you get that out of your subjects? Like, for example, I've seen Peter Hurley's videos, how
Yeah.
he approaches his headshots. It's very
Yeah.
interesting the way he speaks to them.
Mhm.
How do you make them comfortable? Like, to make them emote, because people who are not used to such an environment, they sort of get intimidated and get sort of freeze up, right?
Yeah. I think it's a little philosophical here. And I watched the James Natchley's war documentary movie. So I basically recommending that movie for many photographers because you can see the way he walks and interact with the people. So that it used to be my reference. But I later found that even you are mentioning a photographer and he speaks, to these people and then make them comfortable. So what we are doing is we saw this and we imitate actually. So it's imitating, it's not you. So for with this year of experience, you be humble, simple, and respect others who are come and stand in front of you. And then you don't need to imitate that. Obviously, your body language will be very natural. And that's that. I think the rest it will take care of it actually. Value the person.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great way to end the conversation. So before you go, what will be your piece of advice for someone who wants to sort of enter commercial or photography in general?
To sustain commercially, I will answer that part first because when you start photography, then they decided I want to be a photographer because it means their career, right? So sustain commercially, you have to be a reliable photographer. You know, go on time, shoot, deliver on time, and stick to the brief. That is very important. Whether you are very talented or not, that's okay. Even if it is average, guy can sustain if you are a reliable photographer. That's for a commercial side. And creative side, that's you find your own voice. Like subject is a very important thing. And find some interesting subject and work on it. That's the technical and aesthetics, all that, it's keep evolving things actually. So subject matters. Yeah. That's, I would say, like, you can read this book on being a photographer. That's I really like, rather than me giving an advice. There are quite you know, experienced and talented people out there. And this one book is a very important book, I would say, on being a photographer. It's a conversation between two photographers.
On
Yeah, this book
on
is like, there is a chapter called selecting a subject, I think. Yeah, it's called selecting a subject. So that's
okay.
really a fantastic chapter. It questions you whether you are a photographer or not. So, so when I ask, like, some of the students have a weird idea of, like, Facebook, Instagram likes and things like that. I'll tell them, just read this chapter and come back to me. Many of them will disappear because this chapter will tell that whether you are a photographer or not. Yeah, yeah, that's a kind of a
It,
really sensible question he put, and then ask, and then there is a discussion.
definitely, I will get that book. Thanks a lot, Silva. It is a great
It's PDF
pleasure.
is available.
You,
PDF is available. You can read that.
yeah, awesome. Hi there. Thanks for watching this episode. If you like the Photo Country podcast, you know what to do. Click the subscribe button and stay tuned for more episodes every alternative week. Check out photocountry.co for interesting articles on photography. Catch you on the next episode.